for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Warren. The first question I'm going to ask you is directly from a constituent of mine in South Carolina,
Yes.
who is in the business of providing financial services. What steps will you take to ensure that complaints received by the Bureau are legitimate ones and not merely post-contractual gripes against a company when the consumer decides they don't want to live with the terms?
Well, Congressman, I'm glad you asked about the complaint system. It's one of the most significant features, I think, of the new consumer agency. And what we're planning to do with it is, instead of having sort of a general complaint line, we're really trying to develop more effective complaint resolution in the consumer agency on a product-by-product basis. So, for example, we'll be starting with credit cards. And what we're hoping to do is we're working on setting up a hotline and a form online for people who have had problems with their credit card issuers, and they believe perhaps that there have been violations of law and want to get in touch with the new consumer agency.
Will the complaints be made public? Because I think you'll agree with me that unfounded, unsubstantiated complaints have a deleterious effect on the accused.
So what we'll be doing, and I really want to give a shout out here to 5 of the largest credit card companies in the country who are working with us right now on a way that as soon as we receive a complaint, that complaint can go directly to the credit card companies. They can help us understand whether the complaint has merit. They have the opportunity to try to resolve it with the customer, keeping us in the loop on
Is that
what's
just for
going.
credit card companies, or is it for all financial service providers?
So here's what I want to make clear. As we build this...
I've only got 5 minutes. I'm not trying to cut you off, but there are other things I'd like to ask you.
Fair enough, sir. I'm just trying to give you a picture
Are
of
the
what we're
complaints
doing.
public? Well, let's try that with a yes and no answer.
Congressman, I've tried to describe the process for one product. We're trying to get this product right, and we've had a lot of cooperation from the credit card companies.
I'm probably not answering my question very artfully.
No.
Are the complaints public, yes or no?
Congressman, there is no single answer for all products in the same way.
Are any of the complaints public?
Congressman, we don't have any complaints yet. What we're trying to do is build a system to deal with
So you do have the discretion to keep the complaints non-public if you like.
What we're trying to do is work with the industry to find a complaint system that works for American families and works for those who are providing them services. We're in the middle of that process. This is part of Stand Up, and we are glad, Congressman, to hear from you, to hear from your constituents, and to hear from everyone else about this process. We're an open door on this subject.
Well, thank you. I will encourage them to participate. I want to ask you about some of the definitions. I saw in a definition for abusive. See if I can. Materially interferes with the ability of a consumer to understand a term of condition of a consumer financial product or service. That suggests to me that some interferences are immaterial. Is that what you meant by that?
Congressman, I believe the language you're quoting is out of the Dodd-Frank Act, and it's Congress's intention. Not, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I don't have a copy of it with me here.
Will you not be the one enforcing that?
Congressman,
will you set regulations that define these terms?
Congressman, this is the guidance that Congress has given.
I'm asking you, are some interferences immaterial?
Congressman, we will go through the process of interpreting the language that Congress has given us.
I don't mean for that to be a trick question. Are some interferences immaterial? Because the word material modifies interference.
Congressman, I want to be clear about this. It's statutory language that you're asking. There's a process in place for the Consumer Bureau. You don't want me standing here shooting from the hip about how I might want to interpret individual language.
Well, let me ask you about the second one. It also defines it as an unreasonable advantage or taking unreasonable advantage of a consumer's lack of understanding. Are there some instances where taking advantage of a consumer's lack of understanding are reasonable?
Congressman, this is the language that Congress has adopted in the Dodd-Frank Act. Ultimately, it will fall to this Bureau through a lengthy process to interpret this on a case-by-case basis. I believe it would be irresponsible for me to stand here and pop off about how I would interpret particular words.
Do
There's
you
a
believe
reason-
that there's a duty to educate or a duty to learn on behalf of the consumer?
I believe that consumers want to learn. I think they want to know.
Well, that's
what
a
their
different
products
question.
are.
I didn't ask whether or not they wanted to. Do you believe that there's a duty to do it since the law itself says consumers' inability to protect his own interests? Do you agree that there's a duty to educate yourself?
Congressman, we have, as part of our responsibility under the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau laws, undertaking consumer financial education. And I embrace this. I think it is exactly where this agency should be.
Is that a yes?
We are going to help consumers by giving them products where prices are clear, where risks are clear, where they can make comparisons.
Is there a duty to educate yourself, yes or no?
I believe that an empowered consumer is a consumer who can not only protect himself or herself, but one who can change the market.
Mr. Chairman, I give up.
Good afternoon. There's at least one person. Say hi back. The president and the entire administration. Oh, there we go. What a happy class. Yeah. Now we're ready. Maggie.
Sarah, apologies if you answered this yesterday, but is the president aware?
It's okay. Everybody here likes to ask the same question many times.
Is the president aware that Steve Bannon described firing James Comey as the biggest mistake in modern political history?
Whether he is or not, I think that everybody knows exactly where the president stands on that issue. The president is proud of the decision that he made. The president was 100% right in firing James Comey. He knew at the time that it could be bad for him politically, but he also knew and felt he had an obligation to do what was right and do what was right for the American people and certainly the men and women at the FBI. I think there's no secret. Comey, by his own self-admission, leaked privileged government information. Weeks before President Trump fired him, Comey testified that an FBI agent engaged in the same practice, they'd face serious repercussions. I think he set his own stage for himself on that front. His actions were improper and likely could have been illegal. Comey leaked memos to the New York Times, your own outlet. He politicized an investigation by signaling he would exonerate Hillary Clinton before he ever interviewed her or other key witnesses. He's very happy with the decision he made, and I think he's been fully vindicated by a lot of those new things and knowing that it was the right one. David?
Florida is the president going, and what's he going to be doing down there?
Those details are still being finalized. We hope to have some of that ironed out later today, and we'll certainly keep you guys posted on that travel. Hallie?
Okay, let me just follow up, too. You said that the actions of James Comey could have been illegal. You, the other day, referred to potential false testimony. The DOJ is not commenting, but I would put to you, would the president encourage the DOJ to prosecute Comey?
That's not the president's role. That's the job of the Department of Justice, and something they should certainly look at.
Is that something you'd like to see?
I'm not sure about that specifically, but I think if there's ever a moment where we feel someone's broken the law, particularly if they're the head of the FBI, I think that's something that certainly should be looked at.
And on North Korea, I'm sorry, my second question on North Korea. Is this administration determined whether North Korea did test a hydrogen bomb?
We haven't released those details yet.
Has the assessment been made, though?
I'm not sure, Hallie.
Thank you, Sarah. Yesterday, when you were talking about James Comey, you mentioned that he gave false testimony. I didn't hear you say that again today. Do you still stand by that?
I did say that, actually,
You did
today.
say
Yeah. And he did.
Sorry. Separately, when it comes to Steve Bannon, the Wall Street Journal reported that they spoke the other night. That's what Steve Bannon told the gathering in Hong Kong. Do you know if they discussed the 60 Minutes interview, and has the president said that it's something he would like to discuss with Steve Bannon?
He hasn't said whether he'd like to discuss that, at least not to me on that front. Trey?
Thanks, Sarah. Earlier you referenced two things about the former FBI Director James Comey. First, you said the leaking of information likely could have been illegal. You went on to say something that could be looked at. Are you encouraging, is this White House encouraging the Department of Justice to investigate the former FBI Director James Comey for leaking information?
No, as I told Hallie, this is anybody that breaks the law, whatever that process is that needs to be followed, should certainly be looked at. If they determine that that's the course of action to take, then they should certainly do that. But I'm not here to ever direct DOJ in the actions that they should take.
Follow up on an earlier question, too. A lot of conversations here in Washington about the midterm elections in 2018. What role is the president looking to play in the 2018 elections? Will he be supporting specific candidates, and will he be using his support as leverage to have those members of Congress support his domestic agenda?
Look, I think the president is going to support the agenda and accomplishing things that help America. But in terms of specific elections and whether or not he's going to weigh in, as I've said to a couple of your colleagues already today, I'm not going to be able to weigh in from the podium on that.
Sarah, two questions. One, do you have a reaction to Steve Bannon's comments on 60 Minutes, saying that the firing of James Comey was the biggest political mistake in modern history? And secondly, if you could look forward to tomorrow a little bit, the president's meeting with the Malaysian Prime Minister. What do you expect to achieve during that meeting, and will the president address or avoid the issue of the U.S. investigation into him?
Pretty wide-ranging topic, so I'll try to make sure I cover. First, on the Comey firing, I think that we've been pretty clear what our position is, and certainly I think that that has been shown in the days that followed that the president was right in firing Director Comey. Since Director's firing, we've learned new information about his conduct that only provided further justification for that firing, including giving false testimony, leaking privileged information to journalists. He went outside of the chain of command and politicized an investigation to a presidential candidate. I think the president's been very clear about his position on that front. He's very pleased with the new director and has full confidence in him to fully restore and lead the FBI. In terms of Malaysia and on that question, hard transition, but I'll try to make sure we cover that. The United States and Malaysia have had a 60-year relationship and partnership built on common economic and security interests, and that continues. And the president looks forward to discussing a wide variety and wide range of regional and security issues with the Prime Minister, and talking about ways that they can strengthen counterterrorism cooperation, certainly the halt of ISIS, addressing North Korea and their continued actions, and making sure that we promote maritime security in the South China Sea. Those are certainly, I think, some of the priorities of tomorrow's meeting, but I'm not going to get ahead much further than that on any conversation that may take place. Look, we're not going to comment on an ongoing investigation being led by the Department of Justice, and that investigation